standard fee?
No.
You know, because she cannot charge by the...
By a percentage.
By the percentage of the price.
Your office decides, just like your broker in real estate decides what their fee is, whether it's 4%, 2%, 1%, 6%, 8%, doesn't matter. Your broker decides.
Your broker, you don't.
You do not.
Okay.
You work for a broker. The appraiser does the same thing. If he wants to charge $100, $200, $500, whatever their fee is, you have to remember that whether you're in the brokerage operations or the appraisal field, if you're charging $1,000 and everybody else in the world is charging $200, you're not going to get a lot of business. Okay? Same thing with real estate. You know, your broker may decide, hey, you know, I'm tired of this 2, 3, 4, 5, 6%. I'm going to charge 10%, and everybody that works for me is going to charge 10% on every transaction. You might just starve to death if you stay with that broker. Broker decides. Okay. There's no law that commits you to that broker for life. Okay. It's free will. You may have signed a contract for a couple of months or even for a year, but after that year, or after that 1 month, or after that term that you agreed to, you don't have to stay there.
So you have to sign a contract when you're a seller for a broker?
Depending on the broker. He'll decide, he or she, that office will decide how they work. Don't be surprised when they hit you with a contract, but again, it's entirely up to you and them. It's a negotiation between you and them. And whether your fee is 50-50 or 80-20 or 70-30 or 90 or 100%, it's based on your experience and your negotiation with that broker. Sure. CMA, a comparative market analysis. Look at the word, comparative. You're going to compare. It's a marketing tool prepared for a potential buyer or seller. Again, for a buyer, you're going to make sure that the property in the area that they're looking at, they can afford. But number two, you want to make sure that the offering price from that seller is not above what that market dictates. When you're trying to work for a seller, you're doing that homework before you go see that seller. Because believe me, every seller owns a castle, and it's made out of gold. They want more money because of their blood, sweat, and tears. You know, I laid this floor all by myself, all 5,000 feet of it. Okay, and it's ugly too. So every seller, or for the most part, most sellers, don't have a grasp on reality when it comes to market value. You're going to go in there with your expertise and say, look, your home is beautiful, and your daughter's picture is gorgeous. However, Joe Blow's house a block from you sold 2 months ago for $100,000. And Susie's house 2 blocks away, it's the same model as yours, and by the way has a pool, and it's sold for $105,000. That's reality. So the fact that you want $200,000 is not realistic. Okay? You have to do your homework, because remember this, you're on a commission basis, right? You are sales. If you don't sell, you don't earn. Well, if you list that property for $200,000, example, and it's only worth $100,000, are you going to work for nothing? And that seller is going to want you to advertise and pay for the newspaper, pay for the radio, and you know, and a one-page ad. And all those things, by the way, come out of your pocket.
Advertising?
Depending on the deal with your broker. You know, brokers are, there's every type. let's say that if you, for instance, have a very high commission split, 90, 95, 100, you're paying for everything. However, if you go with a broker and you're willing to accept a 50-50 or a 60-40, the broker might say, okay, for that price, we will pay for the advertising. Depends. It's a negotiation between you and your broker, okay, depending on what programs they have. They may have both, or they may only have certain type. Okay? So, you're going to use a market analysis for either a buyer or a seller. You're going to analyze recent sales of similar properties, properties currently offered for sales, and recently expired. Now here's why, one of the, at least I feel, okay, is why do you look at recently expired? Well, one of the basic reasons, if you look at their price, you'll find that better than 75% of the expired listings sold without, didn't sell because they were overpriced. Every once in a while, there's one that didn't have access, and sellers didn't want to show the property, and it was impossible to show. And yeah, it may not sell, but for the most part, expired listings, when there's an active market, they expire because the price is not realistic, or maybe the conditions are not realistic, okay? In comparison to similar properties. Remember, you're comparing it to similar properties within the same area, within the same time frame. So if you're in a neighborhood where most of the development or the area was built in the 60s, then every property is 50 years old right now, okay? So the fact that there's one that's only 15 years old, you might need some help on that one. But for the most part, every property is 50 years old. Now, some of them may have been updated, may have been added to, and you have to take steps to give it that value. But for the most part, they're the same area. So you have to look again, who's currently for sale, and you have to know what the breakdown is, what their property is, whether it's the same number of bedrooms, the same number of bathrooms, whether it has a garage, not have a garage, whether it has a pool, not have a pool, and obviously those that sold, because the biggest of all three is what actually sold. That's your determining factor. The ones that sold is the one that, and you have to make sure, and sometimes it's kind of hard to do, you have to make sure that there were good sales. Good sales, but it wasn't a bankruptcy, or it wasn't a foreclosure, that it was straight in the market for a reasonable amount of time. It was on the multiple listing service. It went through a time. It didn't get listed today and sold tomorrow. Okay? If it's normal, it took a little while. It was in the market. It was offered. A CMA may not be referred to or be represented as an appraisal. Remember, if it's an appraisal, it's got a totally different set of standards. USPAP #1. And it cannot be a federally related transaction. And you can charge for a fee if your customer will pay for it. You can charge for a fee for a broker price opinion or for a CMA. You can. It's allowed. Now, whether you can collect it or not, that might be a little different. Again, you have to discuss these things with your broker. BPO, or broker price opinion. It's often requested by a lender for distressed property sales or by relocation company. Sales associates may complete a BPO for compensation. Sales associate must be supervised by their broker, and compensation must be paid to the broker. By the way, in parentheses, all your compensation, whether it's a BPO or a CMA or a sale or a lease or anything else, all your compensation gets paid directly to the broker. Your broker pays you. Any questions or doubts about that? Remember I said we're counselors? Well, here it goes again. In finance, A real estate licensee may not accept a referral fee from a lender unless they're also a licensed mortgage loan originator. Again, I said that there was no conflict of interest of you getting multiple licenses. You can be a real estate licensee, you can be an appraiser, you can be a loan originator. There's no conflict of interest whatsoever. You can have all three licenses. What you cannot do is collect a fee for something you didn't do or you're not licensed to do. And that's where the state really gets after us, okay? And as a counselor, again, we analyze the existing or potential problems and recommended courses of action. That's always you'll find sometimes, for instance, residential is very heartwarming. It's very sentimental. The real estate residential market is extremely sentimental. People make decisions to buy or sell based on their heart. So anytime, one of the things that you're going to have to learn with the help of your broker is, for instance, how to combat objections. Remember the house with the red sofa? All you have to remind them is, remember that sofa is going away when they move, okay? They're not leaving it behind. Or that ugly green wall. Okay, how much is a gallon of paint? The best paint, $30? Problem solved. I mean, those are simple, okay? But you have to be able to combat, because the residential market is sentimental in nature. Now, you talk about somebody about their office, and they're looking at area, they're looking at traffic, they're looking at price, of course, they're looking at how many cars per day, and business. Same thing with whether it's commercial, warehouse. When you look at residential, sentimental. So, I did say sometimes we have to be a marriage counselor, right? We have to do that too. Again, mortgage referral fees, we are not allowed. And I'll give you, for instance, RESPA, which we said is the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, which actually governs, it's a federal law, it governs every transaction, residential transaction with institutional financing. They have a definition for a referral fee. And obviously it's not allowed. And it's anything of value. So you can get paid with anything of, if you get paid with anything of value, you violated the law. Now, if you can find something that has no value other than a big thank you, or maybe a text, or an email, I don't know of anything. A pencil you have to buy. It has value. A piece of paper has value. So anything of value is their definition of any referral fee, which is illegal. The second part of the definition is do the work, get paid. Don't do the work, don't get paid. And you're not allowed to do the work unless you are licensed to do the work. So if you do the work, you obviously can get paid. If you're not licensed to do it, you can't get a referral fee. Now you're going to hear all kinds of comments out there in the real world. Well, they pay me. All I can tell you, it's illegal. Yeah. The next phase of our real estate business is development and construction. But I'll tell you what, since this is going to take a little while, why don't we? It is 7:40 right now. Why don't we take a break and come back in about a half an hour?
8:10.
8:30? That's an hour.
8:10.
Thank you. Come back soon. But we'll start at 8:10, okay? Please. I hope I didn't bore you too much on the first part.
Good.
Don't find another